Hello and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are continuing in our mini-series on Shanlinxi, a regional focus, and we're moving towards areas within Shanlinxi. And we're beginning with what is probably the most prominent of these, which is Long Feng Xia, which translates as Dragon Phoenix Gorge. It's the highest altitude tea growing area within Shanlinxi, which is itself already a very prominent tea growing region. The two teas I have, you can probably tell even at this distance, are from the same vendor. They're from Curious Tea, and they're both spring harvest. This is from April 2024, and this is from May 2025. We're going to be looking at the packaging and all that good stuff in a moment. Just to point out that we're looking at, I've got my notes here, the teas are very lowly oxidized. They're between 10 to 15%. They're not baked at all. So you're, in one sense, apart from the processing, turning it into a tea into beads, you're getting into kind of Baozhong territory of kind of simplicity. And you're looking at an altitude of over 1,800 meters. And there's really very interesting kind of flavor profiles to look for, kind of high altitude, Gaoshan flavor profiles taken to the max. So let's move on to take a look at this packaging up close, and then we will take a look at the tea inside and have our 4 reviews. See you soon. Here we are looking at the packaging for our 2 Shanlinxi Long Feng Xia Oolongs from Curious Tea. Naturally enough, given that we're simply looking at tea from April 2024, and May 2025, in other words, 1 year's harvest, springtime, then the other, the only real difference is in that harvest time. So it's an exceptional tea from Shanlinxi, an area famed for producing some of the world's best oolong teas, and then it's the altitude of 1,800 meters, a bright and smooth liquor, wild floral notes, and a citrus edge. Can be brewed more than 3 times. Then we have the Brewing Parameters, Nantou County in Taiwan, and in both cases, obviously, the details remain the same. And you see how we, by the use of a colour scheme and certain symbols, Curious Tea can tell you immediately what kind of tea it is and where it's from. So let's take a look at the 2 teas inside these packages side by side. Here we are looking at the tea leaves in their balled up form from the April 2024 harvest from Curious Tea's Shanlinxi Long Feng Xia Oolong. The buds are quite a mixture of size and colour shading. A lot of the colour shading is to do with the quite prominent beads, stems, although there are some greener edges along some of the beads. I don't know how well the camera can pick up, say, that one. Apart from the paler edging, the majority of the leaf is a dark green. The size of the tea beads is fairly varied, with some absolute stonkers as outliers and some presumed fragmented pieces which are smaller, but even so, you're looking somewhere between, I would say, 3 to 8 millimeters. And they look very inviting, just not very uniform. So now we're going to take a look at the next tea, and then we'll move on to our reviews. Here we are looking at the leaves from Curious Tea's May 2025 harvest of Long Feng Xia Oolong. I would say the tea beads are slightly more uniform in size. There were fewer outliers, let's put it that way. I'd say the majority of the leaf is somewhere around the 5 to 6 millimeters in these tea balls, or tea beads as I like to call them. And there are some smaller ones shading down to about 3 mils. The tea material is just as abundant and obvious, but I think that's quite natural for high mountain tea. The aroma of the tea, which I didn't mention for the 2024, it's fresh and it's fruity and it's sweet. And just for the record, that was the same for the 2024 as well, but that's got a slightly herbal tang. So let's now move on to the next part of our video. Hello and welcome to our Western style or teapot style review for today's 2 teas, which both come from Curious Tea from the Long Feng Xia area within Shanlinxi, and they're both made from the Qingxin cultivar. On my left and here We have the first steep of the harvest, April 2024 tea, so a spring harvest. And on my right, we've got a spring harvest, May 2025. So 2024, 2025. First steeping in both instances. It was 3.5 grams of tea, 150 mils of water for 3.5 minutes. Still tweaking the formula, trying to get what seems to be the best for bringing out the tea. So there's a wonderful aroma coming from these already, which is a very encouraging sign. So let's take a look at the colour to start with. I would say the spring 2024 tea and the spring 2025, they're much the same, I would say. A pale yellowy green, although for some reason the one on the left, the spring 2024, has I would say is slightly opaque compared to the other. So I'm going to move this tea to one side so I can take note of the aroma of this one without being influenced by that. Wow. Some slight cream, some slight butter. Masses of freshness. I should say the leaves weren't particularly unfurled by the time we'd done 3.5 minutes. So I'm really impressed by that. That's a pretty intense smell. Now, the spring 2025, some of that same freshness, and I would say a more distinct fruitiness. But there's a great wedge of cream on top of it. So you do have something very different. It's just those growing parameters year by year. So let's take a try of this tea. I didn't bring my other cup to cool it, so I'm just going to use very little at a time. It's very smooth. There's an unusual flavour to it. I'm not sure what to make of it. It's fresh and it's smooth, but there's something. I mean, it's 2024, so it's not like it's easy to get hold of. There's something slightly rubbery. Don't know what that is, but it's not tremendously enjoyable. The smell doesn't have it. Let's see what the May 2025 does for us. On the cup, it's the same fruit and sweetness. It's a little thin, because again, the leaves didn't unfurl fully. But once again, you've got some freshness and lots of cream and some sweetness. I think what's coming across as rubber is that in the case of the spring 2024, it's still too much tea. That's how the aftertaste comes across. With the spring 2025, it's spot on. So again, you've got that slight difference in how the tea is reacting. So now what we're going to do is move on to our second steeping, which will be, I think actually we'll go for 3.5 minutes again. I know we usually bring it down, but given the leaves weren't fully unfurled, we'll maybe match the same time. So our second steeping, I think, will be 3.5 minutes as well. So I'll see you in a moment for our second steeping. Now we have our second steeping for these two teas from Curious Tea from Long Feng Xia. Again, they're 3.5 minutes. So just to remind, the second steeping and the parameters are the same. We've got 3.5 grams of tea, 3.5 minutes at 95 degrees centigrade. Let's take a look at the colour. Now, funnily enough, this time the colour has evened out. Whatever that kind of opaqueness has gone. I would say the 2024 has a slightly more intense yellow colour, but it's still slightly green, and the 2025 is simply paler, but I would say it's equally yellow-green, same proportions as it were. How has the aroma changed? Sweetness and freshness. I would say. Pretty strong. Sweet and fresh with a vegetal note on the 2025. So let's just try the 2024. There's some fruit coming out on the cup. Really smooth. Picked up in some body. Very smooth. Slightly herbal. But the sweet in the fruit isn't there, funnily enough. It's coming in right at the end there. Not as much as I was anticipating. Let's see how the 2025 goes. Yeah, there's a lot of vegetal and cream on the cup. There's a zing of freshness there, but it's cream and vegetables. Oh, not vegetables. It's creamy and it's vegetal with some freshness and sweet on the top. Okay, so just to sum up, with our Western style, there's a lot of sweetened fruit and cream and vegetable in the nose, but Western style, at least with spring harvest, we haven't managed to get a great deal of the sweet or the fruit on the taste. So let's see if we can manage that with a Gongfu. I'm actually rather tempted not to do a Gongfu for the 2024. It's just doesn't come across as tremendously promising. So I think we will just do the single Gongfu for the 2025. Hey, this is live for you. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to record this bit again. I think we'll just stick with the Long Feng Xia 2025 spring. Back in a mo. Hello and welcome to the final part of our video, which is our Gongfu session to review Shanlinxi Long Feng Xia Oolong May 2025 from Curious Tea. The brewing parameters are 95 degrees centigrade for the water, 3 grams of tea, 50 mils of water per steeping. I don't know how well you can see it, but I've got the pad I've been using to record the duration of each steep, and I have my trusty tablet here and its stopwatch to actually work out how long those steeps are. With that all said and done, everything is pre-warmed. We've got everything that we need. So let's make a start. Not quite sure how well these beads will react, so just keep an eye out for any popping. Some popping, not a great deal. So we may start looking at 40 and see where that gets us. I don't know what I kept doing wrong, but this is the third, if not fourth attempt at doing this part of the video. Thankfully, I didn't actually start brewing the tea, but I just kept having something missing and having to restart because I don't like pausing a video halfway through so you can see all the gubbins, as it were, behind. This is 40 seconds. Something slightly fresh, but that's it. I think we're going to need to push closer towards a minute for this steeping. Yeah, I think we'll need a minute. And there we are. Pour that out a little so it has time to cool. A little vegetal and a little sweet, a little fresh. The beads, the stalk, some of the stalk has started to absorb, but the beads just look fatter. They haven't unfurled at all. Still very tough. How are we looking for colour here? I would say that is white tea colour. It's that lovely silvery colour. Maybe a touch of yellow, but basically looks like a white tea. The aroma, very mild, but it is a first steep. There's a little fruit and a little sweet, I would say that's what I'm really getting on the cup. The fruit's a little stronger. There's more cream there than I expected. The flavour's dropping off. It's not thin though. And there's more body than I expected. I think the creaminess is helping with that. Definitely plenty of mouthfeel. So that was very promising. And not drying, actually. So we may give that another minute. Checking in at 45 and see what we've got. I'm having to add just a touch more water because the beads are fattening up. Right, there we go. Take a note of that. Okay. That was impressive. I didn't expect quite so much body for a first steeping, especially when the beads have barely opened. Right, don't fidget, Ian. Sorry. I keep wanting to check more frequently than is probably good for the steeping. So we'll check in again at 45, which is coming up just now. Some of the leaves have actually unfurled slightly, but I'm not getting much flavour, so I'll definitely take it to another minute. Or at least we'll look at in at a minute. I think we'll take it to a minute 10. No, a minute 5. Let's not risk over steeping. Already I can see there's more colour there. Ooh, sweetness and vegetal. Partly it's the strong smell of the leaves themselves, the smell of wet leaf, but there's still a bit of sweet and cream there. The leaves are, the stalk has started to unfurl, you can probably see. Yeah. But the leaves are very leathery. You can, yeah, they're leathery. They're not anywhere near ready. A little greenish, I know it's probably hard. Ah, there you go. It's greeny gold, I would say. Very appetizing colour. Cream and fruit. Very definitely fruity. Kind of a green fruit kind of a smell. Same on the cup, but slightly more complex, but that's always the same with a cup. Lots more body, loads of sweetness, juicy. It's not overly sweet. It's almost, I'm not quite sure. I suppose the freshness is doing that, but lots of body there. And really intense for a second steeping. Cream has dropped off there, or at least it's just behind the other flavours. Very nice. Again, doesn't feel like it's over steeped or anything like that. So I'm not quite sure where to go with this. Maybe checking at 40 this time. Be a little more circumspect. Yeah, definitely need to add more water there. Okay, so I think the lid's okay. This is quite a relief. For most of the day when I've been doing some other recording, I've had the roadworks just outside the window there, making an absolute racket. The workers are doing a fantastic job. They're taking up as little room as possible, but that kind of machinery still makes quite a racket. That was soft and vegetal. I think we will maybe just bring that in at 55. Yeah, I think we will. The leaves are looking pretty unfurled there. And what I will do to make sure you get a better look at the colour is I'll not pour out until afterwards. vegetal, little bit of cream, little bit of sweet. Yeah, I think you'll be able to see the amount of tea better. There you go. Greeny gold. Yeah, I think I would say that. Greeny gold, yeah. Fruit and sweet and cream. Bit of freshness. Not a herbal or kind of savoury freshness, just a little something that's stopping it from being overly sweet, I think is what I'm getting at. Okay, I really want to let that cool. Yeah, I think I was right with that. The leaves, let's see if we can get you on. Yeah, they've responded really quite well now. They could do with a little bit more work, but that's not bad. They're pretty much, they're a bit crumpled, that's a good word, but yeah, they're all tender now, and the stalk, all the stalk material is definitely unfurled. Freshness and sweet on the cup. Definitely picked up in body. It's all working very harmoniously. Cream and sweet and vegetal. Bit of fruit, bit of fresh, all wrapped up. Whatever that slightly dull note was, right at the start, not dull, but the thing that was making it touch savoury, that's there in the background still, but this time it's kind of adding. But that's definitely the sweet spot for that. Okay, I'm going to finish it off because there's a lot of body to that and it's really very enjoyable. So what can we say for the Gongfu? The leaves are responding very well to it, bring out a lot of body, especially by the third steep. The flavours are very harmonious. We've got sweet, fruit, cream, slight bit of vegetable, slight bit of freshness, all working together very nicely. And this is last year's, so, and I don't think, I mean, it's only a couple of months before the spring 2026, so I don't know if there's any of this spring 2025 left in stock. I would guess so. Now, as always, in summary, I think this is a great tea. Because I'm comparing it to a whole load of others, I'm not going to review it except in the sense of what were its good features, which hopefully have come out fairly clear. If you are interested, there's plenty of teas from Long Feng Xia available, but as a matter of courtesy, I would always suggest that you go through Curious Tea. It's a very good showing, responded very well to the Gongfu, and it wasn't exactly, I would say better on the Gongfu, yeah. I would say better on the Gongfu than the Western. So, hopefully that's been of some use and some interest. It only remains for me to say happy steeping and God bless.